Hello everyone, welcome to Bitcoin Not Crypto. My name is Forrest Stevens. Today's video is a full comprehensive overview of Bitcoin and the environment. The environmental impact of Bitcoin mining in particular is a key sticking point for a lot of people, and I want this video to be the one that you share with people so that they can get a full grasp of all of the nuance of the environmental impact, positive and negative, for and from Bitcoin mining. Before we get into that though, I do quickly want to tell you about a film that I'm crowdfunding through Geyser, which is a Bitcoin only crowdfunding site where you can use the Lightning Network and send some sats and support projects and campaigns that you think should be out in the world. My film is called The Land of Volcanoes and Bitcoin, and I am trying to fund it through Geyser, so check out a link in the description. There's all sorts of more details on that, and I'm actually entered into a grant right now, so if you vote by donating, you can help me win 500,000 sats, which would go a long way to getting this film made. So why is Bitcoin and the environment a sticking point for people? Well, a few years ago, Ethereum, which was a proof of work mechanism at one point, basically got lobbied by Greenpeace USA and some people at Ripple, and they switched over to proof of stake, which uses a considerable less amount of electricity. Now, proof of work is the mechanism that Bitcoin still runs on, luckily, and will throughout its history, I'm sure, its future history. Proof of work is basically a mechanism of protecting the ledger of Bitcoin. If you didn't have something like this, you could have problems with double spending, you could have people messing up the ledger, and you wouldn't 100% know if the transactions on it are fraudulent or not. Now, proof of work is important in the sense of creating security, but also the decentralization of Bitcoin so that you can trust all of the different miners because you know their natural incentives are to get the Bitcoin reward and secure the system. Proof of work itself is basically a hashing algorithm, the SHA-256, which is an encryption algorithm. Proof of work, you can do it with any computer. Originally, it started with just desktop PCs, then it went to GPUs, or basically computers that were built specifically for the algorithm. These are called and abbreviated as ASICs. These ASICs are computers that are specifically designed to just do one function and one function only. They're completely useless in any other application. They just hash the SHA-256 algorithm. Now, there are public companies, there are private entities, there are just individuals who can install into their house, into a shed, into a shipping container, into a warehouse, racks, or all the way down from an individual all the way up to racks of these computers. These computers use electricity, and that is the point of contention for environmentally minded people. The electricity use, however, much like everything in this world, is not so cut and dry. It's very nuanced. So the electricity use with Bitcoin, nobody is going to use expensive electricity to mine Bitcoin. So these numbers that I'm talking about and all of the numbers that I will mention will fluctuate with time and have been different in the past as well. Right now, you can earn basically and roughly 6 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity use. So what that means basically is you need electricity that is less than 6 cents. Now here in Canada, we pay about 11 cents Canadian, which is probably about 8 or 9 cents American. So if you're to just plug in a super non-efficient miner into the wall somehow, maybe 240, plug it into your stove outlet, you're probably going to lose money. People that mine Bitcoin, they seek out cheap energy. Now, the cheapest energy out there actually is stranded energy, waste energy, and certain types of renewable energy. Now, what's very interesting about the Bitcoin mining industry is that 57% of all the electricity that gets used in there is from a renewable source. This 57%, it's actually increased. It used to be below 50 not too long ago. The reason for this is because renewable energy is very inefficient in its delivery system. And what I mean by that is you have to have some sort of understanding of how the grid works. The grid works in a way of when I turn light on in my house, I am increasing the demand for electricity. And on the back end, the grid has to balance for that. Now they overweight balance. They basically have more electricity in the grid than what they estimate there will be needed. And the problem with renewable energy in a lot of cases is it's intermittent in its ability to supply the grid with electricity. So solar is a great example, but you can use these examples in all sorts of different renewable energies. And we'll use ones that are even infrequent, but let's stick with solar for a second. Solar creates a lot of supply at a very specific time of the day when the sun is high. Now that demand for that electricity on the grid might not be there. The middle of the day, a lot of people are probably at work. They're not at home. They don't have the TV on. They're not cooking. So there might be less demand actually when there's more supply. Now they can sort of balance this, but the grid doesn't really like, intermittent supply electricity. It wants super stable electricity because the grid's main job is not to go down. So they're much happier with a fossil fuels plant that can just burn electricity, spin a turbine, and have that super consistent energy flow. They'll work with solar electricity to some degree, but they sort of have to dampen other things, and there's a lot more balancing, and it becomes a lot trickier. So how Bitcoin mining can fix this problem is it can be on and off demand. It can be really quick demand, and it can stop demanding electricity within just seconds, right? It can turn on and off. There's no disruption really to the operation besides that it is not guessing at these hashes or doing these mathematical equations to try to win Bitcoin. So basically they lose out on the opportunity to win Bitcoin, but they're also facilitating the grid to operate properly by turning off. So when the grid has a lot of electricity on the grid from a renewable source, the grid operators, they work with big energy demand places. So like power, they work with like manufacturing plants and factories and things like that, and they will demand that they curtail their operations to kind of ease the demand on the grid itself. Now, Bitcoin mining is much better than a smelter, for instance. If a smelter needed to curtail its operation to support the grid, they only have a certain amount of time that they can do that before they ruin an entire batch of the metal that they're smelting. It also takes them time to shut down all of those things. With Bitcoin, you could essentially flick a switch off and you would stop demanding electricity immediately. And as soon as the electricity is there for you to use again, they could flick that switch on. It's basically that easy. So they can balance grids really well. And in fact, they're doing this in Texas. Now, what's great about this as well is, say there's a really sunny day, a solar plant has partnered with a Bitcoin mining operation. There's more supply of electricity than the demand on the grid from this renewable energy source. They can immediately use that energy to mine Bitcoin and get paid that 6 cents. Now that 6 cents might be less than they would actually get from the grid itself, but at least it's something. Because there will be times when they're getting nothing and that energy is literally just going to waste. Now you might think, okay, well, energy going to waste, what's the big deal? That energy is getting created. It's not emitting any carbon. It's not ruining the environment. But you have to think further than that. You have to think a couple moves ahead in the world. So what happens is if the renewable energy, in this case, the solar farm, has a guaranteed buyer and can make more money because of that, then they're able to expand their operations, become a successful business, and continue operating. So that allows them to basically fund more operations, which increases renewable energy. And they could, in some cases, there's these renewable energy projects that are stranded. So they're actually not even connected to the grid. They don't have the ability to do so, but you could build an energy capture on site of these renewable energy sources. A lot of times it's geothermal, sometimes it's hydro, and there's no line connecting them to the grid. You could generate that electricity on site. You could build a Bitcoin mining operation on site, and you could hook up to a satellite internet to participate in that. And it could all happen right there. And then, because you're only getting paid 6 cents per kilowatt, you could use those profits to connect to the grid, and you could get paid more for your electricity. And when there wasn't demand, you could still have that Bitcoin mining operation be that intermittent energy buyer. This is happening with a company called Gridless in Kenya. This is a real world example of this happening, where electricity costs for these rural villages near these energy sources, but not directly at them, are very expensive. So they're able to tap into geothermal, which there's tons of, and they're able to mine Bitcoin. And then as soon as they make enough money, they're able to build the wires, the infrastructure, all the transformers, everything, and start running electricity to these villages. And when these villages buy that electricity, they're going to pay significantly more than the Bitcoin miner would, but significantly less than what they were paying for electricity before. So it actually improves their living standard. And then, of course, they're going to go to bed, they're going to turn their lights off. That geothermal is still going to generate electricity, and that miner will buy it then. So there's this real symbiotic relationship with Bitcoin mining and the environment. Now I'm going to get into something here that's fairly novel. I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. I can't think of any examples. And that's because it's very hard to have any concrete evidence. It's very hard to do any studies. And this is more of a theoretical, but somewhat kind of obviously true situation. Let's actually talk about Bitcoin itself. The adoption of Bitcoin, the ability to use it as a savings account, the ability to step out of the market, the casino of stock trading and equity buying, and the ability to step away from owning real estate as an investment, of maintaining homes and charging people rent and facilitating the Ponzi that is real estate. Not individual real estate, but the real estate market. Now, Bitcoin does a lot of great things right there by being just a savings account. But one thing that it does is it changes the way you think about your money. When you have money, we all know that the value of that money is going down. Whether we think about it a lot, whether we're orange pilled, whether we really think and understand what sound money is, we know that we can buy more today than we can in a year. It might be a subconscious thing in some parts of the world, like here in Canada or the US. In other parts of the world, it's a very conscious thing. You know that when you get paid, you're going to buy the week's worth of food, you're going to buy staples, you're going to buy all sorts of things immediately, because it'll be cheaper than if you wait a week or however long, because the buying power of the currency that you're getting paid in is less. Now, that was kind of just talked about right there in a survival sense, talking about buying flour and the staples of food. But it does something subconscious where you feel like you can't save, so you might as well spend now. There is a large push in this society that we live in for consumerism, spending your way out of a problem, getting a stimulus check. Spending is good for the economy. It's the thing to do to help everybody. Go support businesses. What that is consumerism. And what consumerism is it's damaging to the environment. When we consume, when we buy unnecessary things, those things have to be created. They take a lot of energy to create, and we create waste products. Even if those waste products are recycled, that recycling takes electricity, that recycling takes fossil fuels, that recycling has an impact on the environment. The shipping that we create, I mean, we overconsume as a globe. We overconsume. We overcreate, we overconsume, and a lot of it is these things that just feed us in not just in a nourishment way of substance, but feed us in just our temporary existence. And a lot of it is completely unnecessary. I preface this with the fact that this is unstudyable, but the impact of currency that goes down in value has a huge impact, I believe, on our willingness to overconsume, which has an impact on the environment. Now, if you were to adopt Bitcoin, Bitcoin gives you a longer time preference. You hold Bitcoin, you realize, hey, the longer I hold this, the more valuable it will be, the more I can buy later. So I have a natural incentive to spend it less. Now, the people that have been tricked by the economist du jour will say, oh, that's going to create a recession. That'll create stagnation in the economy. Maybe it will create efficiency within the economy. Maybe companies that create wasteful products, that create products that people don't actually need or really want that much, will stop creating those. And as they stop creating those, maybe they can charge more, maybe they can increase their margins in some way, maybe they can become more efficient, create better products, and we will actually live better because of it. So, like I said, that's a harder thing to comprehend, but I do think that it has an impact on the environment. Us adopting individually and collectively a sound money where things become cheaper over time and because of the natural deflationary effects of technology. Our phones, if you buy a 2-year-old phone, you can buy it for a fraction, a small fraction of what it costs when it's new, and yet the technology is the same. It takes a lot less human hours, a lot less energy in its entirety to build a house today than it took to build a house 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago. The house is of better quality. I mean, people can debate that because of, construction requirements and things like that. But the house could be of better quality based on the technology that's gone into it. This is the same for food. It takes less people, less energy to gather the same amount of calories today than it did 10, 20, 50 years ago. And we live in a naturally deflationary world because humans are deflationary because we invent, we create, and we create more efficiency. Now so everything around the world is deflationary, except our currency. It is inflationary. And, people talk about, the CPI, the consumer price index, we want to get that down to 2%. We want inflation to be around 2%. 2% is a completely arbitrary number. Basically, it's the number that says, well, it's small enough that people won't riot. That's what 2% inflation is basically designed for. Now, it's not explicitly designed for that, and nobody in the Fed will ever say that or whatever, but that's basically what it is. Because the inflation, it should be deflation because of all of the technological advances that I just stated. That basically should, in an efficient market that we have, that if our currency wasn't just artificially inflated, the things would get cheaper, right? So that would mean that the consumer price index, the goods that we buy, would actually be a negative. So inflation should be a negative. It should not be even zero. It should be less than zero. And this has a profound effect on the environment and individuals' well-beings and so much else. And this is why I'm so passionate about Bitcoin, is because it's not just a way to make a bunch of money, you know, number go up, whatever, you know, it's really a world-changing idea in the way of it bettering everyone who adopts it. Now, if you want to adopt Bitcoin, the way I adopt it is buying and holding currently, and I do that in self-custody, and I do that through the platform, the Bitcoin Well. It's a great platform because you don't have exchange risk. They never hold your Bitcoin for you. They send it directly to your wallet, and they have the lowest spreads in Canada. They're also available in the States. They have non-KYC options, and the link for them is in the description. It's a referral code. So if you sign up, if you spend, if you get some Bitcoin, you know, exchange and swap that filthy fiat you have, I get a small little kickback. It's very small, but it goes to support this show, this channel, and the information that I'm providing here. So thanks everyone for watching. If you do have any other questions, if you feel like there's some things that I should have explained a little bit better, please tell me, because I will just do another video explaining that side of it in more detail. I hope this was conveyed well enough for you to share it to the friend who says, yeah, but Bitcoin's bad for the environment. Here's a video for them, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.